Did Fred Zinkie dominate last night's Yahoo Friends and Family Draft? We'll show, you decide. We'll also talk about all the scoring that happened in baseball and the resulting pitcher disasters that went with it. Next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to RotoWire's Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. Our podcasts are brought to you by the good folks at Vivid Seats. Thank you for their sponsorship. Fred, we did one last draft last night while we were watching the Rockets red glare. All the home runs that happened, 59 home runs yesterday.
Wow. I knew it was, and it got off to like a rockin' start. Like I feel like
Yes,
a
it
lot
did.
of those home runs were hit in the afternoon or in the first hour, say 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern yesterday. It was by about before we started the draft at 7:45. Before we started the draft, I was already in just duck and don't look at your pitchers and assess the damage tomorrow morning mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was copious damage. I mean, I think there's all these guys. Hey, 2 starts this week. Michael Kopech, let's get him in.
Oh.
Oh,
So
so
I
bad.
thought about that and I thought, are we being too aggressive? I used Drew Smiley in a couple leagues yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought like my usual philosophy is, and other people I know who are good at this game, like aspire, like use the same philosophy, but is to be a little aggressive early in the season with some of those 2-start guys because the pitching pool is going to get worse as the season goes on, right?
Yeah.
Injuries and whatnot. But this year, I'm wondering with the rule changes, if maybe just kind of hunker down at the beginning of the season, be a little more cautious, and then decide. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like this year, maybe more than the last few years, even though there were things the last few years, but I feel like this year we're really trying to figure out what baseball is on the fly.
So the funny thing is, prior to yesterday, batting average was only 2 points higher. Runs were not any higher than the year before, and power was actually down a little. And then yesterday, everything went crazy. So yesterday's the first day we had a bunch of 4th and 5th starters going. The thing is, though, it is April, and it's going to heat up. When it does heat up, it could be even crazier. So it could be that it's the new rules. Could be a new ball again. We're back at it again. It's not that cold, by the way. We haven't had a single rain out yet. There's some nice temperate areas so far. We haven't had the really, really bad weather so far either.
No. But so yeah, so like you were saying, like the numbers so far compared to last season's numbers, although I have seen the stats on whatever it is now, 4 days into this season. Is it 4 days, 5 days, whatever?
5 now, yeah.
5 days into this season, the numbers are way up in comparison to 5 days into last season.
Well, yeah, that's actually probably a better comparison than
Yeah.
season-long stats. Yeah,
Because
that
you've
makes
got,
sense.
like you said, like you haven't dipped into 5th starters much yet. The pitching
Yeah.
rotations are as healthy probably as they're going to be. Like the weather
Mhm.
hasn't fully warmed up. Although, like you said, like we haven't had a lot of cold weather games yet, but still not July. So I think it's going to be up. And it's not just that the offense is up, it's that we're trying to figure out on the fly right now, I think, which pitchers are bothered by all of the rule changes. One of the rule
Yeah.
changes to who's bothered by the pitch clock. We're trying to
Yeah.
figure that out. Carlos Carrasco said last night that he found the pitch clock to be a problem for him. Who's
It's
bothered by the shift rules, right? Like we're trying to figure all these things out on the fly.
There's
They're all
batters bothered too. I mean, Manny Machado just today get called strike 3 on the pitch clock violation and then got ejected for arguing it. So,
there you go.
it's batters too.
Yes. Yeah. So I tend to spin a lot of things positive. So so bear with me. But I
That's
actually
very Canadian of you.
It is. I like the brand of baseball that we're gearing towards. Like, I would like a higher BABIP. I would like a little more scoring. I
Mhm.
like the extra base running, the base hits. Like, I like it all. It's
Yeah.
just, so I like where we're going. And at this point next year, we're going to really understand when we prepare for our 2024 drafts, we're going to really understand what this brand of baseball looks like, what the new benchmarks are, what an acceptable team ERA is, what an acceptable team WHIP is. We'll have that down. It's just that right now we're doing it on the fly, we're all trying to figure it out. I've listened to other podcasts today where some podcasters are kind of throwing their hands in the air saying, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure this out just like everybody else on the fly, one day
Right.
at a time.
Well, how
And
can you know? It's 5 days.
yes. Yep. Exactly. And it's how it impacts the league as a whole, but it's
Mhm.
also how it impacts each individual player. So for example, if you have Carlos Carrasco on your team and it impacts him a lot, that's what matters for your team. If someone else has Marcus Stroman on his team and it doesn't impact Stroman a lot, then in his world it doesn't impact Stroman. In your world it impacts Carrasco a lot. So it's because the impact isn't going to be uniform, because all these players are actually people, and they're going to be impacted
Right.
individually by being hurried up and by the way their batted balls matter, or any of these things. And I think I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I looking for in a pitcher right now?
Right.
That's
Right.
the biggest thing. Like, we're all feeling good about our offenses for the most part, because the offensive stats compared to early last year are up a bit. We're seeing the extra steals and things like that, but it's the pitching. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, you have a lot of teams too, so you feel like you have stake in so many pitchers, but so many pitchers have been unexpectedly rocked early in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Maybe in some, maybe expectedly, and I just missed the signs. That's the thing. And first of all, it's one start. They're gonna recover. They're gonna react. They're
Hmm.
going to adjust accordingly. And then on top of that, there's fundamental attribution error. We may say it's the pitch clock is why Carlos Carrasco got rocked. Well, what if he just had meatball stuff
Hmm.
and the Brewers rocked that? Same thing with Michael Kopech lost velocity as as a stat was as the start was going down, and he got rocked in that last inning, especially.
Hmm.
But did he lose velocity because of the clock? Did he lose velocity because he wasn't up to, his training
Yep.
wasn't good? Is he hurt? These are all things that we don't actually know the answer to. It's one thing to say, okay, well, this definitely did this, but we don't even know for sure if it's that. We can't isolate for one factor. We can't isolate for one rule, even, for crying out loud. That's the thing that's really difficult to me. I guess with Kopech, I mean, they're all home runs. It's not the shift ban. It's not the
No.
shift limitation with him.
No, with him, it could have been pitch clock. It could have been more rapid repetitions
Yeah.
caused him to wear down earlier. Um, the thing that, as a fantasy manager, what I could wrap my head around a universe where we've got to be more careful with the
Mhm.
Carrascos and the Kopechs, because you're going to get burned sometimes. So maybe I got to lean into middle relievers more, things like that. But on top of all those players, we've seen Aaron Nola get rocked. We've seen Jacob deGrom have a bad start. We saw Corbin Burns be just okay. We saw Alek Manoah get rocked. Like, we've seen a
We
lot of
we got
pitchers.
Bassetted over the weekend.
Right. And
Oh,
Chris Bassett is way above the cut line, as far as like you're rolling the dice when you put Jose Barrios in your lineup at the start of a season, coming off what happened last year. You
right.
knew you were rolling the dice last night. You knew if you use Kopech or Cutter Crawford last night, for example, for Boston, you knew you were rolling the dice. But, like, there's got to be a world where you can put Alek Manoah and Aaron Nola and Zach Gallen in your lineup and just relax and be like, okay, that guy's a good pitcher. He might have the odd bumpy start, but he's going to
Mhm.
finish the season with helpful ratios.
Right.
So that's when it's really duck and cover time, is when you're even nervous when your good pitchers are pitching.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's how
I
I'm
don't know if we're
feeling
there
right now.
yet. I keep wanting to signal the caution here that, hey,
Hmm.
it's 5 days. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of things are at work, including the adjustment to the new rules. And players are they adjust. Teams adjust. That's what they do. So,
Yep.
what's true now may not necessarily be true going forward.
It is true. And to come back to last night's draft for Yahoo Friends and Family, it was fascinating to draft. Basically, you were probably, I know I was, like, using my draft list that I would have used a week ago. But then, with everybody's got the knowledge of these initial starts and
Mhm.
initial games in our head. So all of a sudden you saw Aaron Nola fall. He
Right.
fell to round 3, pick 8, for example.
But that's not very far, only in a 13-team league. That's still like pick 34. I mean, in a 15-teamer there, that's like 3.4. You're
Yeah,
not really like, that's not a huge discount, is it?
it's no, but, like, I took Shane McClanahan ahead of him. I wouldn't have done that a week ago. Maybe that was a bad call. Maybe it was reactionary. Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, went ahead of him. Max Scherzer went ahead of him. I'm pretty sure if we check main event ADP, he's ahead of all those guys. Yeah, it was just interesting as we went through. Zach Gallen fell a little bit. I noticed that. He made it through. Like, I could just look and see, like, Framber Valdez went ahead of him. Alek Manoah fell a little bit. Like, all these guys who had bad, like Alek Manoah went after Yu Darvish. We go back and look at main event ADP. He's ahead of Yu Darvish. You know, he's so it was interesting to see how we were trying not to be impacted by like one start or a couple games. But that it's hard to resist because you'd feel foolish if if you were like, oh, I even saw it coming. He'd already had a bad start and I took him early anyways. And he continued to start poorly. It was an interesting exercise in like trying to ignore the first few days of results, but you couldn't totally ignore them.
Right. Well, and I was really intrigued to see where the injured guys went, because we do have 2 IL spots, but only 2. We have 44 moves we can make on the year, 44 free agent moves we can make on the year.
Way down. That's way down. It used to be, I think, 75 a couple years ago.
75, like 80, 90 at one point. I think Scott Pianowski, who's running it, was cognizant that we don't want to be on the waiver wire every day. We don't. It can do more than wait till Sunday. And I'm grateful I don't have another FAAB league, to be honest. I think this is actually kind of perfect.
Yep.
I can pick up a guy whenever I need one or whenever I see something. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I'm not. That's another thing I need to do on Sunday and worry about. So I made this almost a full-on FOMO draft. Fear of missing out, guys. I got my share of Anthony Volpe. I got my share of Jordan Walker in the 6th and 7th rounds, respectively. But I messed up, Fred. I had the 7th pick. And the top 5 are the top 5. They go the same way every time. Bo Bichette went 6th. I liked Kyle Tucker a lot, and I went with him. But I really want Shohei Ohtani. I don't know why I didn't take him there. I know why I didn't take him there. It's because on Yahoo,
Kyle Tucker.
because in Yahoo, he's 2 different players. The pitcher is one player, the hitter is another. I should have still taken the hitter because we have 2 utility spots. So him being DH only, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt you.
Yeah. So it's just in a vacuum, I would take Kyle Tucker over Ohtani.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even flinch. Like, I think Kyle Tucker will steal more bases. Neither one of them are huge batting average guys. I like the lineup Tucker's in a little better. I would take Kyle Tucker over him. So when you say, why'd you take Kyle Tucker over Ohtani? Like, I think most people would take Kyle Tucker over Ohtani, but you're right. But it's close enough. And it was your last draft of the season and there's no money tied to it. And if you wanted to go a full FOMO team, you could have started with Ohtani. And then I don't know who your 2nd round pick. Well, it might have, you took Derek Cole in the 2nd round. That's not a FOMO pick, I'm sure, for you, but
it was still a very fun pick. I was very.
Do you have some Spencer Strider? Because he went with the next pick. He could have been a FOMO pick for you.
I have him in a keeper league. I don't have him in any NFBC leagues, but
maybe that could have been a FOMO pick for you.
And I have him in a home league on Yahoo as well. I have Strider, so I have some.
Okay.
But then it's noteworthy Ohtani went all the way to 1 pick before me in the 2nd round. So it wasn't like he was the obvious pick. It would have been the fun pick. That's all.
I was surprised. I'm never the Ohtani guy, and he had fallen. Like, I was like, oh, he's really fallen. This pick to me now is a good deal. Ohtani usually goes, like in the main, he would usually go 6, 7, maybe 8. So
and in 2nd in one of my 3 mains. By the way,
there you go. So for him to last all the way to there, and when he's being drafted in the main, he's basically being drafted as a batter, like for the most part. So for him to fall behind the likes of Alvarez, Machado, Soto, Pete Alonso, Bobby Witt, Freddie Freeman. I love Freddie Freeman. I would take Freddie Freeman over Ohtani, but most people wouldn't. So anyways, it was interesting. I was surprised that he fell that far, and especially because this was a bit of a FOMO draft for all of us.
It was.
You knew it was your last one.
Drafting after the season starts, it's always an interesting exercise. Kind of, the no entry fee aspect of it there. I'm sure there will be side bets of sorts.
Sure.
It was fun there. Anyhow, the draft software loved what you did, Fred. And I thought, let's take a look at Fred's roster. And I think actually Yahoo's ranking algorithm loved what you did too. First of all, you had the 5th pick. So you went Jose Ramirez. You get the 5th of 5. It's always nice to get that.
Yep.
Paul Goldschmidt sitting there. Okay, that's pretty normal. Shane McClanahan, like you said earlier. I mean, that's pick 31. That's
Fine.
I've seen him go as late as 43. One pick in front of me, by the way. That was not a happy accident. But Shane Bieber, Julio Urias, that's some good pitching there.
Yeah, I decided to go. I found in this league, it's an innings. It has an innings pitched cap now with fewer transactions. So it ends up being a little bit of a K per 9 league if you can get to the cap. Now this year, I was thinking with those 44 transactions, I think you'll use half of them just replacing injured players. So you probably only have about 20 to 25 transactions that you'll actually use by choice, right? So, for
Right.
example, I put 2 players on my IL after this draft. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to pick someone up like tomorrow to fill those bench spots. I might not. I might save the transactions and just play with empty bench spots for now. So you're not going to be able.
By the way, why I did not take any of the injured players. I think Bryce Harper went at
Okay.
a good enough price that you should take him.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of injured players where I like,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because you only get 2 IL spots and only 44 pickups.
That's right. So you might end up just with some injured players on your bench. I find in this league, I don't really love having marginal starting pitching. I'm not looking to just accumulate innings. I want good starting pitching, and then I want relievers.
Sure.
So I decided to use 3 early picks: McClanahan in 3, Bieber in 4, Urias in 5, all on starting pitching, and get like a trio of really good aces. And then I didn't take a lot of pitchers in the next few picks.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good. I think that's a good underpinning of a philosophy. I like it there. And then you kind of just pound the hitters and then take late pitchers. So after your 3 studs, Tim Anderson, which I gifted to you, by the way, because I took Volpe. That was pure FOMO. Anderson is rated higher on my rankings. It's rated higher everywhere, and I just wanted one league where I had Volpe. Starling Marte, Brian Reynolds. These are all very solid, boring picks.
Boring. Yeah, there's more boring.
Yeah, wait,
picks
there's more. Nestor Cortez, who was wonderful yesterday. Your one injured player, your first injured player, Rizel Iglesias. We'll have to talk about him in a second. Christian Yelich, Lance Lynn.
Sorry. Keep going. It doesn't stop there.
Jake Cronenworth, very vanilla, just got signed though. Javier Baez, risky pick. Rizzo, McNeil, man, yeah. Did you fall asleep during this draft?
This has been a bit of a theme for some of my drafts this year. Like
boring is beautiful though.
So many guys there who are just in the vicinity of age 30. Jeff McNeil, JD Martinez, like he could suck this year, but he's a little boring. A lot of just grind it out through the middle rounds, guys who have very secure jobs, should, like barring injury, should get their 600 plate appearances and a variety of skill sets, but a lot of guys who can contribute a bit. Like Yelich could get you 20 homers, 10 steals. Well, who knows in the new steals environment, right? Javi Baez could get you 20 homers, 10 steals. Rizzo could he could actually get a few steals. He could get you 25 homers and 7 steals, 10 steals. Who knows, right? Like Cronenworth kind of chips in across the board, not really speed, but anyways, just a variety of a little bit of tweaks in the skill sets, but same premise for all of them. We'll see how it turns out, but I have 0 Jordan Walkers. I have 0 Anthony Volpes. I just have 0 of a lot of these, very few shares of the really volatile players.
The risers, if you will.
Yeah.
I got a lot of early Jeffrey Springs, but nothing in the main event. I was like, do I go out here? Nope. Scott Pianowski snagged him. I'm pretty sure it was Scott that did that. And, Scott even said, he goes, this is a different draft for me. And he took some injured players. He took some trendy guys, which is, he took a stash in Brett Beatty late. It was definitely not his standard type of draft.
Yeah. Brett Beatty, by the way, who left his game with an injury today. And I just grabbed him in FAAB in one of my NFBC leagues on Sunday. And I was like, okay, this could pay off in the next couple weeks. And I know Scott's been really posting about that. And I think he's on the right track. I agree with him that Eduardo Escobar is off to an awful start after an awful season. He blamed the awful season on some personal problems. I was hopeful that was right. I actually grabbed him really late in a couple early drafts. I was like, okay, let's see. Because when he's good, he can be a 30 homer guy. So I was like, okay, well, let's see. Maybe it is. But so far out of the gate, it's been really bad. And I thought, okay, we could be a couple weeks away here from Brett Beatty just taking over there, and Escobar becomes a utility infielder for them. But we'll see. We'll see what the injury was. But he left his game this afternoon.
Yeah. And I thought maybe it's because they're calling him up. No, that wasn't it.
No, it's with the trainers. Unless they gave the trainer the ability to tell him he's getting called up, but I doubt it.
Yeah, that'd be very weird.
That would be pretty. That would be an amazing psych on the internet. Is to tell the trainer, "Hey, go tell him he's getting the call." Everyone will think he's hurt. The Twitter will go crazy.
What would be even worse if, like, hey, we got your family on the line. We got this Zoom. You're getting sent down.
Yeah, that would be great.
Be horrible, actually.
Yeah,
it seems like something the Reds would do. But anyways, I digress. So, I mean, and what did you do for closers in this league? Let's see here.
I did later. I missed out. I almost got Felix Bautista. I would have been really excited about that, but I took Iglesias. I'm hoping to get 5 months of closerness out of him. I do think he's someone as the Braves closer who, if he could be their closer for 5 months, could get 30 saves or close to it. Like, I think the Braves are one of the only teams. I think their closer could get 6 saves a month on average. Jose Leclerc. So I'm not totally buying this Will Smith. I think Jose Leclerc will share some saves, but I think he'll also get some saves. And in a league like this, he's just in your lineup all year. You don't make lineup decisions because you rotate the starting pitchers around him. So whatever saves he gets, I'll get. And then that's probably about it.
Jason Adam.
Same thing. I'm hoping for 8 or 10 saves from Jason Adam, but I'm going to have to find some saves. I say in one area, I was happy with the starting pitching. I was happy with the hitting depth. Our league's a little smaller this year. It's 13 teams. It's been 15 or 16 usually over the last few years.
Right.
So, I think I'm going to have to keep my eye out for some even part-time closers that I can add.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take a look at my team in a second here. Yeah. But before that, quick note from our sponsors. Baseball is back. Swing into MLB season with Vivid Seats and score tickets to all of the hottest matchups and biggest games of the year. Every crack of the bat, every deep center fly, every heart-pounding double play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seats rewards, now you earn rewards with every single purchase. Each ticket you buy gets you closer to your reward. Just buy 10 tickets and simply cash in your credit toward your 11th ticket purchase. It's that easy. Pro reward tip: buy tickets for your whole group, split the bill, and make progress towards your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the plate to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2023 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats. Experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. I've used it before. It works. It's excellent. And well, I mean, it's a way to buy tickets, and you have to buy tickets online anyhow. Might as well go through them as opposed to another vendor, because you can get the reward ticket. I kind of like that. So there you go. Also, all of our podcasts are on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. All right. Thank you for your indulgence. Let's look at my team real quick here in the Yahoo Friends and Family Draft. I drafted from the 7th spot. As alluded to, I took Kyle Tucker, Garrett Cole in the 1st and 2nd rounds. Cole at 20. I mean, that seems like a pretty good bargain to me.
Amazing. In a league that, like I said, that really values elite starting pitching over just a volume of starting pitching. Your team's actually it starts off not very FOMO-y, kind of more like mine, because then you went Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Ryan Helsley. You got to get your closer. I get it. So it's pretty chalky at the beginning. Tucker, good value at 7. Cole, good value at 20. A couple veteran middle infielders, go Rangers, a closer. And then you flipped the switch and said, it's time to have some fun with this thing. And you went Volpe, you went Jordan Walker, you stole my Drew Rasmussen. I got him in every draft until about March 20th. And then I felt like his price went up.
He and Springs ran parallel. Yeah, Springs is trendier than Rasmussen, but not too much. Yeah. They're pretty much in the same ballpark there. Go ahead. Yeah.
But then you went Yohan Duran, who's another, I think he's a great fit for this league, but he's again another guy. Yohan Duran could be anything from a top 5 reliever this year to a guy who gets 7 saves. We'll just wait and see how they distribute saves this year. I think he'll be somewhere in between that, but he's an awesome pitcher. He's pretty much as good as any reliever in baseball. And then Christian Walker, who I like at that point. and then a couple volatile starters, Blake Snell, Kodai Senga. Senga just volatile in the sense that we don't have a lot of major league track record. Snell
Sure.
seems to always be all over the map, but the skills with him are tantalizing. And then you got a little, then you went back to boring. So you went kind of exciting through those early to mid rounds, and then
Yep.
a Eugenio Suarez, Alex Verdugo. I have him on so many teams, and
So boring.
he is the ultimate yawn. I think him, Jeff McNeil, and Luis Arias are my 3 ultimate yawns. I have no Arias, but I have some McNeil and a lot of Verdugo. They are like the most boring. Alejandro Kirk, bit of a, he's fine. He's kind of a boring catcher. He's gonna hit 270 or something like that, 280 and a few home runs. But yeah.
Can I interject for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's talk catchers. You waited even longer than I did and got William Contreras, which was just a sick price, but it's a 1-catcher league. You and I are so used to playing in 2-catcher leagues. Yeah. It's nice to play in a 1-catcher league every once in a while.
Amazing. I kind of wish they were all 1-catcher leagues whenever I do this draft every year.
I found that people kind of took catchers too soon overall. Some of the top catchers. I think and then honestly, I think that happens a lot. Let's do it by round, and we can kind of see that a little bit there. Like Real Muto, he went at first pick of the 4th round. That's not too early.
But this is a smaller league, so it's pick 37. That's too early, in my opinion. If he's going in a 2-catcher league, if he's going ADP like 28, I think he's got to fall farther than pick 37.
Yeah, our buddy Dalton Varsho took Dalton Del Don took Dalton Varsho at 5.9. That's 4 times 3 is 52. So 61. That's a little lower, but not too much lower.
Not bad.
Will Smith went in the 7th round. Will Smith's off to a great start. Rushman and Sal in the 8th. Wilson Contreras in the 12th. So you can see there's a gap after that.
Yeah. It's not bad. Like, I agree with you. I feel like maybe in a 1-catcher league, and we're all tainted by the 2-catcher leagues that we predominantly play in.
Yep.
So it's hard to pass. It's hard to see these guys at the top of your queue, and you would normally just automatically click on them. I was going to go catcher all the way till not the last round, but maybe the 3rd last round or something like that. And then I just felt like the value on William Contreras, he kind of hung around, and I was like, I think I just got to take him, deviate from the plan a bit. But I was thinking like Kyber Ruiz went in round 23, Travis d'Arnaud, who's been playing a lot at the start of the year, and Gabriel Moreno, who I know you really like. Those guys both went in round 24. So when you can draft those players basically on your bench and make them your starting catcher, I don't know, and also have the whole catcher pool minus probably about 15 catchers at any point in the season to pick from on the waiver wire.
Right.
I think waiting makes some sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. All right. So I got Kirk in the 15th. I could have even waited a little bit longer. I felt like I was chasing an outfield a lot. I got Fraley, Riley Green, James Outman, Michael Conforto. Added a late share of Trevor Larnach. I'm pretty happy about that one, actually. Trey Mancini in the 24th. It also plays first base. But I loaded up on middles and corners early. And that's kind of by design. But it felt like I was also light on outfielders as a result of that.
Yeah, but this is the league where we only have to have 4. You got 2 utility spots. So I think that'll be fine. Like, I think the guys you took, like Trevor Larnach, is really interesting to me right now. I mean, I scooped him up in our labor league, but didn't get him in as many leagues as I had hoped to on Sunday night. So yeah, I think he's really interesting right now. And James Outman is also really interesting right now. So I think you grabbed some interesting outfielders, like some guys with upside. Riley Green's got upside. Jake Fraley, we know, has upside. Yeah.
I was upset to see you get Larnach, but then again, because I play in labor with you, but at the same time, I was just scrambling to find. I added 3 pitchers this week, so I just couldn't even focus on that other side. But Larnach and Outman were available in that league too, so those were pretty sizable bids.
Cool. Shame on all of us for letting Outman get through the first FAAB run. I had bids in on him and just won the guys I had ahead of him, which in hindsight, I wish I didn't have those players ahead of him.
Right.
But when I realized I got my outfielders, and then I looked and I was like, oh, I wonder who got Outman. Oh, no one. What? No, none of us had him high enough in the queue, and I regret not having him a little bit higher in the queue. And then, obviously, by the end of the first weekend, I really regretted it because I could have got him for $1.
He's so fast.
Oh, it was yeah, like I say, bad mistake we all made. Someone paid, I think, 9 for him. I think I was probably second or third in the list. Like I was willing to pay a few dollars for him at this point.
2 triples last night, and neither were close either. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, he's fun. He's going to be a lot of fun. I like he's a patient hitter. He and Vargas at the back end of that lineup are making that Dodger lineup stronger than I thought it was going to be.
This is the Dodgers. Like I felt like people were like, "Oh, the Dodgers are kind of down. They didn't sign a lot of guys this offseason. They're kind of down." They're not down. That lineup's, like you said, like that lineup's scary. Like it always had the talent at the top, and now it's got these exciting youngsters in the bottom half of it. It still has someone like Muncy in the middle who should benefit from the new rules. It's still a really good lineup. I fear it with my pitchers. Yeah.
Yeah. I kept on saying that the Dodgers over total 96.5 was too high, in my opinion. I may have to revise my statement.
Yeah.
We'll see. Although, I mean, the starting pitching depth isn't there right now. So we're not completely off on that one there.
You're right.
Okay. So let's talk stolen bases. There's been a bunch of stolen bases so far this year. I think 84 now and 16 caught stealing. Did you feel like you drafted enough stolen bases? Do you feel like you planned for this well enough?
The question is, what is enough stolen bases right now? Because when we projected the totals, I don't think any of us in our projections probably built in enough of an increase, right? Like for most of these players, I felt like my own projections, and when I looked at projections on RotoWire or on Fangraphs, I mostly just saw their projections being their usual projections, but maybe a bit on the high end. But I think they're going to smash some of those, right? So, but I did try to get a group of hitters who can all contribute some steals. So right off the top, like Ramirez steals bases, Goldschmidt will steal a few bases. And then once I got past those 3 pitchers, Tim Anderson steals some bases. Starling Marte steals bases. Brian Reynolds, maybe not so much. But then as I kept going through here, Christian Yelich will steal a few bases. I try to just get a group of hitters who Javi Baez will steal some bases, a group of hitters where they will all steal some bases, and then just cross my fingers maybe that's enough. I don't know. I don't know if you sat back and looked at all of your teams when draft season ended in their entirety. I couldn't believe how different some of my teams were. Like I have teams all from using the same draft list. I have teams that I think will be very high in steals, and then I have teams that I think that's going to be a challenge for. It's remarkable how different your teams can look in drafts
100%.
based on the rest of your room and based on what pick you had.
Yeah. I think that's right. And it's funny how it's changed from the start of the season. Like Corbin Carroll is a perfect example of a guy that I got in January a lot, and it's like, oh, do I spend that 6th round pick on him? Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Now at the end of the draft season, he was going at the 2-3 turn.
Pick 28 last night. Yeah. Pick 28 last night. So, I think the thing with steals, you also have to remember, and this is like if you're not in the main event, you don't have to win your steals category, right? Like we don't know how that steals category is going to look this year. You have to compete in it.
Yeah.
So I tried to make sure that my teams were competitive in the steals category. One league that involved drafting Esteury Ruiz in the middle rounds because I felt like I was really light on steals. In all the other leagues, I felt like I drafted enough players who could chip away, but someone's going to win steals in your league, but you don't have to be that person. You have to, maybe this was a good year to be able to compete in steals and then just see where it falls.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And unless you're in an overall contest, you can even fashion a strategy there where you don't compete in steals.
Yeah, you could say, I don't know where this steals category is going this year, so I'm just going to draft the best hitters and devalue the steals category down to 0 and end up in which case you would end up with no steals.
Yeah, that's right.
Or basically no steals. So yeah, that's it. I didn't do that in any leagues. Did you try anything like that in any leagues?
No, not really. I wanted to be competitive in every category. I'm not much of a punt categories type of guy. I've done it before. I've done in those retro drafts that we did. It was like you had to do it. You almost had to do that. Remember, did you ever do any of those? I think you did, right?
Yeah. Oh, I did all of them. I love them.
Yeah.
Or I think maybe all of them. Yeah. Punting one every draft, basically.
Every single draft. I was just going to say, I don't know if there is a draft where, maybe there was a draft where you were not fully punting, but light, but nonetheless, you had to have because we all knew the stats, right? So you had
Yep.
to it was all about moving the pieces on the chessboard, and that I thought that was fun and interesting to see.
It was really interesting, and I don't know if the takeaway was that punting works or if the takeaway was just that punting works when you already know the stats. I
I
don't
think it's the latter. Yeah,
obvious yeah, I think it's the latter as well. Punting works. It can punting in these leagues can work. It's just you just have to nail the rest of it. So you punt saves. Well, you better not have your two aces. Your aces better not be Justin Verlander and you know what I mean, like someone
yeah,
else who's like you can't have that happen because you once you punted saves, you put a lot of pressure on your starters to come through. You can
yeah,
punt steals, but your team better hit for a high batting average, and that's
yeah,
hard to predict, especially this year,
yeah.
for
I mean,
example.
Doug Dennis did the punting strategy that really worked out in AL Tout Wars, and we've talked about that a little bit. There
Yeah,
were punted starting pitching,
yeah.
which, by the way, is kind of a robust strategy. It's because like you miss on one closer, well, you got 8 other relievers that are going to get you saves and all that, and you're
Mhm.
not when you're entirely focused on finding those emerging high strikeout starters on the waiver wire. I mean, relievers, excuse me, on the waiver wire. You're not worrying about starting pitching at all. I mean, that's great. You have to nail the hitting, and he completely nailed the hitting last year. But and I think he's going to find it harder this year because other people are spending the same amount of money on hitting that he did last year. So
Mhm.
he probably won't dominate it to the extent that he did, where he got every single hitting point. I mean, literally 60 points in hitting. That's
That's amazing.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's definitely something you can more do in an only league where every team or most teams have hitters in their lineup who don't
Hmm.
even play. So the hitting stats, like if you can accumulate a lot more plate appearances by spending more on hitting than most people, and you
Hmm.
accumulate a lot of plate appearances, you can kind of bully your way to the top of the batting average, or in Tout's case, the OBP has to come into form, um, but the cumulative stats, you can kind of bully your way there a little more in an only league than you can in a mixed league where everybody's, has everyday players at every spot, or pretty much everyday players at every spot.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's keep talking some more hitters here a little bit. We already talked about Beatty. Um, you think that you overlooked Jorge Mateo?
Yeah, I just like it kind of made sense. Steals, I think a lot of us did. I think his ADP
Yeah.
is quite late. Um, I just I don't think he's very good. Maybe I'll end up being right, but I don't think he's a very good hitter. Like his OPS last year was 646.
Hmm.
His OBP was 267. 267. Like that's not even a good batting average. That was his
Right.
OBP. So I thought there's no way this guy's going to hold a regular job and get us the counting stats. And I might still prove to be right about that, but I don't know. Like he was available late in a
He
lot of my
was.
drafts. And we're talking about someone who stole 35 bases last year. And now we're entering a league where steals are easier to get. Like I probably should have thought when it was late, why don't I just draft this guy just in case he steals 55 bases this year?
Right.
Just in
Right.
case. And if his playing time's not there in the middle of April, like he was available so late. I wasn't comparing him and Alex Verdugo or something and just saying, you know what, Verdugo is just such a better player. Like it was just him in a late round hitter. I think I should have been on him just as a guy who's a category stat stuffer in fantasy with
Hmm.
with his ability to hit 10 or 15 home runs and steal all those bases. I don't know. I don't know where this is all going to go. He's obviously off to a hot start, and it's not a Babbitt fueled start. So he's off to a hot start. Kind of, it's only a few games, but on his
Yeah.
own accord. On his own accord, it's not like I say, it's not like he has a 600 Babbitt or something. It's just the ability of him to rack up steals. I should have picked him in like round
And
25,
at a great price. It wasn't
round
like you.
like yeah, like round 25 or something like that. I could have grabbed him
Yeah.
just for my bench. See
Yeah.
what happens for 2 or 3 weeks. I think I'll regret that, but we'll see. But I think I'll regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Orioles are going to be interesting to see if they, if the people that are starting the season with jobs end the season with jobs. Mateo
yep.
is one of them. He's got to hold off a kid named Jordan Westbrook, for instance. The Orioles have prospects coming out of the year. So that's going to be fun to see them over the course of the summer and see how they adjust.
And their infield's crowded right now. Like
Yeah.
just Adam Frazier, Ramon Urias, like it's a crowded infield already. So it could get even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little Minnesota Twins. Joey Gallo had another homer yesterday. He's up to 3. Twins are 4-0. They're pitching great. They're hitting great. I do have a little bit of Gallo, but not a lot of Gallo. I wish I had a little bit more, I think. Or maybe I'm just reacting to 4 games against the Royals and Marlins.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. So I do not have my Jorge Mateo feelings yet on Joey Gallo.
Okay.
We'll see where this all goes, but it's just like his career batting average is now by the way, is now an even 200. So his hot start to the
Wow.
year has moved his career batting average, which was 199 when the season started, to an even 200. So, I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not there yet with Gallo. We'll see. I did expect Gallo to have somewhat of a bounce back this year. Like he's not even 30. He turns 30 after the season this year. I thought he could hit 30 something home runs this year with the Twins. But if it comes with especially with batting averages trending up, if his batting average comes with a 220 average, which would be an improvement for him, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm not really regretting him at this point. We'll see. Maybe he'll hit 45 homers or something this year, but I'm not regretting him yet. And you said you have a few shares.
Well,
I
like
guess.
1 or 2.
Okay.
I have them in Scarf, and I think I have them somewhere else too.
Okay.
Don't have them in the main though, of course. Pitching wise, though, I mean, their starters have been just nails so far. Lopez on opening day. Joe Ryan was great. We saw yesterday Tyler Mahle was great. We got Kenta Maeda today, making his season debut. First game since did he pitch at the beginning of the year last year? I forget.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. So he's been out for a very long time.
Yeah.
He's kind of a wild card for them.
Yes, along the lines of what we were talking about with pitching earlier in this episode, I have Kenta Maeda on an important team to me, and I didn't start him this week, even though that Marlins matchup is solid. Because I was so smart, I started Drew Smiley instead. But but so I wish I could undo that. But just in general, he was up and down this spring. Maeda, his control wasn't great this spring, and which kind of fits the profile of someone who's coming back from this layoff. So
yeah,
I decided I do one. He's a 1-start pitcher this week. Should be a 2 next week. I decided I do 1 watch and see start, and I'll see where it all goes. But Kenta Maeda is someone like his career whip is 1.14. Like and his career strikeout rate is good. It's more than a strikeout.
It's always been durability.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if he could be reasonably healthy this year, like he could have stretches this year, if his control's fine. His control's always been good. And like I said, it wasn't good in spring training. So we'll just see where that goes when he pitches today.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'll be watching that one closely. It's up against Sandy Alcantara, so that's going to be a tough matchup for him, and one the Marlins desperately need. They're 1-4 now.
Yes, yeah. And I felt like the Marlins. I don't know. They're not the Pirates to me. Like they can pitch. They're not the Pirates. Like they're not a team or the Reds. Sorry, but they're not a team that started the season
3-1 Reds, by the way.
Yeah.
No,
catch Reds fever. Catch it.
Terrible.
No, but they're not a team. Yeah, they're not a team that started the season already looking ahead to 2024 and beyond. Like I feel like the Marlins aren't likely going to make the postseason, but they do have a chance. They can pitch. They have a chance to make it but they can't not good enough to bury themselves and then come back.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you get into that hole that's too deep to dig yourself out of too. I mean, the Marlins and the Phillies are both in a tough spot right now.
That's right. There are a few teams out there like the Dodgers that are maybe so talented that they can climb out of a hole if they started the season off really poorly. But for most teams, like if you have an April where you're I don't know, like 8 wins in April or something like that, like you might not climb. It's easier now, I guess. There's more wild cards, but you're probably not going to climb your way out of that.
No, probably not.
You run into where they start doing, I've been here as a Jays fan before, where they start running the data around the early May, middle of May, where they're like, so the Jays record to make the playoffs would probably have to be this and this many wins and this many losses from this point forward. And you look at it and you're like, oh, that's probably not actually going to happen.
No, not
like we'd have to have I know you could have a 10-game win streak and then all of a sudden it comes back to normal. But yeah, I've been there before where you're like, okay, we're not doing well, but it's not that bad. And then they're like, the Jays would have to go 80 and 50 the rest of the way to make the playoffs. And you're like, oh, well, they're probably not going to do that. Great. What am I going to do with my summer?
Kind of like me checking out the Premier League standings and seeing how far down Liverpool is and realizing they're not going to be playing Champions League next year.
There it is. Yeah, I'm not a big soccer follower, but I know a little bit about how that works. Yep, it's just the same. Or maybe on the flip side, maybe your Reds will get off to a hot start and you'll get one of those stats where you're like, hey, they'd only have to play, 500 ball the rest of the way to have a chance.
Yeah. Well, the Reds
Probably not.
probably not. They played 3 games against the Pirates and 1
Yeah.
against the Cubs. Let's not
Yeah.
get too happy right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you already in the mindset of like you would like the Reds to finish as low in the standings as possible this year, or are you more like you'd like them to actually be okay because it's probably a sign that some guys like Fraley in India, maybe eventually De La Cruz, like these guys
Probably
are
the latter, but
right,
man, I really want the owners to suffer at the same
right,
time. But
right.
they don't. They never suffer. They pass
And
on their suffering to
to
others.
you, yeah, and they do have if they did have an unexpected like 80 win campaign, it would probably mean that Hunter Green, Lodolo, Ashcraft, that those guys have arrived. So
Right.
yeah,
And they got some credible 4th or 5th starter. Right now, I don't feel like they have that. The Overton window shut about the 4th inning
hmm
yesterday.
yeah,
And then we'll see Sessa tonight against the Cubs. So against
yeah,
Hayden Wesneski. I am intrigued to see Hayden Wesneski, although
yep.
I benched him in one league because of the venue. And because I had alternatives too. I had options. I had to figure out who was going to have to sit. But Wesneski is another one of those guys. Plenty of shares early, none late.
He's a major FOMO guy for me. I have no shares. I had shares of him last year. I was on him when he came up. I have no shares. I should have got shares of him early. In my last draft, I debated him and Miles Michaelis. I took Michaelis because he's so safe. Then I watched him pitch against my Blue Jays on opening day, and I was like, "Oh." Well, hopefully, in the end, Miles Michaelis has always been safe. Hopefully, that'll sort itself out. But yeah, I don't know. It was one of those picks where I almost knew as soon as I made it, I would regret it. Either way, if I had taken Wisniewski, I would have been like, "Oh, he's so risky."
Right,
Why
right,
didn't I
right.
just take? Why didn't I just take a safe 180 innings from Miles Michaelis? We'll see.
I've been
I
there.
still think Michaelis will come around. The Cardinals usually pitch fine. I think Michaelis will come around.
I had the combo of Manoah and Michaelis on opening day in one
Okay,
league,
it's tough.
and then
See
Chris
what I
Bassett
mean?
2 days later in that
Oh,
same team.
in the same team.
Yeah, so I'm
What's
off to a rip roaring start there.
I feel like your team ERA must be like 9 or something now,
So
even with some decent pitching.
my team ranks in the 700s in the main event in that team. So yeah, that by the way, that's bad.
Wow.
So very bad.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really awful there. Speaking of really bad and awful, and your Blue Jays all at the same time,
Oh,
Jose Barrios. We got to talk Jose Barrios.
cut him.
He's a cut, right? He's got to be a cut. He got smacked around by the Royals, who didn't score until Sunday
It
and
looked
benched a bunch of people.
and it looked so much like last year, where guys were just teeing off on him like right from the get-go. Right? So
Yeah.
I just sidebar when I am a huge UConn basketball fan. I have been since I was probably in grade 9 or so. They're my only favorite sports team that actually wins, wins
Well,
championships.
congratulations then.
Yeah. So last night, but I almost felt like I knew that they were going to win last night. Like I felt like
It felt so inevitable.
they had been so dominant,
Yep.
and I had followed them all season, and I was like, oh, am I going to watch the Jays or am I going to watch UConn? Well, it turns out I could watch both thanks to Jose Barrios because because the Jays were done long before UConn. I was able to watch the Jays, then go watch a whole other show, then come back and start watching the basketball game. This looks so much like some of his starts last year, where he got teed off on right at the beginning, then he kind of recovered briefly, and then teed off again.
The difference was it was good teams that were teeing off on him last year. Now it's the Royals.
It's bad. I in a 15-team league, starting pitching is so scarce that sure I would bench him and see where it goes. In a 12, but again, I wasn't in on him at all. In a 12, I think he's a cut.
Yeah. Yeah, this for me is a what are you going to do with Jose Barrios question, not what am I going to do? No,
Yeah,
zero
no.
zip, not a none.
Yeah.
I've been staying away from him for a couple years now.
So he pitches Saturday in LA. How well would he have to pitch Saturday
against the Angels, though?
Against the Angels, yeah.
In Anaheim, not in
Anaheim.
LA. Okay.
Sorry. When I was at an Angels game last year, humble brag, I felt like I was still in LA, but maybe I wasn't.
Well, they do call themselves the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So
I did drive a long way before I got to said LA game. So
yes.
I did feel like I was leaving a city, I guess.
Well, you drive all the way from Toronto just for a game in Anaheim. I mean,
that's
a
lot of work. A lot of work. Anyways, how well would he have to pitch Saturday for you to keep him in a 12? Like 5 innings, 3 runs. Would you keep him?
No. But I don't know. I mean,
you can bench him.
So I guess, but because I get in a 12-teamer, Probably not. And a
In a
15
12,
team.
you're right. In a 12, I think I'm just moving on.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just going to pick up some random starter who had a good start this week. Like I'll just take like Chris Flexen if he pitches well on Wednesday. I'll just pick him up in a 12. Like I don't think Chris Flexen's going to be good, but I think
Do
it
you
would
have the
just
one
be
strikeout in 4 innings? Yeah.
yeah, it would just be me getting rid of Barrios. Like I would just
An
like he
exorcism?
pretty much like Anthony DeSclafani is he if he's still available. He had a nice start to open the week. If he has a nice start at the end of the week,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I pick up him. Maybe I pick up Rich Hill. I don't know, but I would just pick up anyone else in a 12 because I just don't see Barrios getting the ratios that I need in a 12. In a
No.
15, I think I might have to keep him for a couple weeks
Yeah.
if I drafted him.
Maybe there's plenty of other hideous pitchers on our rosters right now. Yesterday was bad. Kopech, Carrasco,
Yeah,
Bassett earlier in the week. I benched Bassett in one of my two teams that I have him in the main. One of them we kept him active because I just didn't have a
okay.
better pivot. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want that start. I need to find out if the low velocity from Bassett is going to continue, because if it is, I mean, there's no hope.
I know, and this is as a Blue Jays fan, Kevin Gosman worked out well, but we've got 2 years ago Barrios, last year Kikuchi, this year Bassett. That's 3/5 of the rotation, and Barrios has been terrible for the Blue Jays. Other than that first few starts when he first came over,
Right.
Kikuchi was terrible last year. Bassett was terrible in his initial start. It's really interesting. This is the finishing pieces on a team that has a good like core group of position players and I think a decent bullpen for this year. And we'll see what happens with Bassett, but with Brios and then Kikuchi last year, they have not been able to figure out how to bring in like mid-level free agents that pitch fine for them.
Ross Atkins needs to get a pitching consultant
I guess, yeah, maybe. And then like the Ray, I just watched the Rays bring in Zach Eflin, and he gets off to a good start to the year. And
against the
like
Tigers. Let's just
against Tigers for sure
yeah.
easier. So well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this all shakes out. I'm definitely like I'm not even considering cutting Chris Bassett, not for a while.
Yeah,
I would
not
give him
cutting, but
him a long
I
leash.
just benched him in a league. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. How about this? If you could own Barrios or Kikuchi right now, I think I would own Kikuchi. Because he hasn't started yet tonight. Maybe by tomorrow I'll take back Barrios. But I think I'd rather try Kikuchi right now than Barrios.
I think I'd rather own Eric Swanson, just get relief innings
Yep.
than either
Yep.
of those
You're
two.
right. Well, these are the dilemmas we're going to come to. We were talking about this at the beginning of the show today. Like
Yeah.
these are the dilemmas. It's going to be, am I going to try Kikuchi? Like I started Kikuchi in Tout Wars this week. I drafted him in like round 33 or something of the draft interval.
Good luck.
He has two starts this week. The first one's in Kansas City. He had a really good spring. I'm going to give him a shot. I have Eric Swanson. I think he might be in my lineup too, but you know what I mean? Like we're going to be in these dilemmas in a lot of leagues as we go forward, where am I trying Drew Smiley? Am I trying Kikuchi? Or am I just going to give up and just use Eric Swanson and maybe hope this is the week he gets a vulture win?
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Let's do a couple quick minutes on relievers. I have to cut out a little earlier because we got swim meet to go see. But
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about closer madness last night. First of all, Arizona, what a mess. Scott McGuff blew the save in like 5 pitches, 2 solo homers to David Dahl, who I didn't realize was in the league.
Great story. I was excited for him.
Yeah, and Ha-Sung Kim. I was not excited at all. I was very despondent because he had a save. McGuff had a save Sunday, and I was like, okay, he's back to being part of the. This is going to be a committee of sorts, but I can live with the committee. I can't live with this. The only thing that would have been worse than like him walking 4 guys. That would have been worse than giving up the 2 homers, but this was pretty darn bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll get additional chances. Andrew Chafin, like I think he's their best reliever. He's just left-handed. So like they kind of need to use him in a variety of ways, but he has a win and a save already.
And was going to get another one last night too, had that held.
Yeah. I don't think that Andrew Chafin's like amazing. And like, I'm not rushing out, to trade for him or something, but I think he's their best reliever. I don't know if they'll eventually settle on him as closer. I think McGough will get another chance. I think Chafin might get the next chance.
Right.
But maybe it ends up being Chafin more often than not, unless there's a situation in an earlier inning, like in the 7th or 8th, where the manager's just like, okay, like we got to use the lefty here. Like this is so whatever, we'll put in someone else for the 9th. But I would have said, I think you and I both would have said a week ago that McGough leads the team in saves this year. Now, would you say that Chafin leads the team in saves this year?
I think it's person not identified yet leads the
You think
team
it's
in
neither
saves.
of them?
I think so.
Because they're not
Because of
really
the
a
lefty factor. I think they want
right.
Chapin in that role that he's
Yeah,
got. So it could be Miguel Castro, it could be someone that's a
yeah,
converted
could
starter,
be.
could be someone from outside the organization. I'm very pessimistic now, and
Mhm,
I have McGuff. I got him in the 21st or 22nd round on that live main event, and then we pushed
mhm,
him up even higher in our last main event the night before the start of the season. I'm a little despondent right now, so maybe it's just because it's
mhm.
affecting me that I'm that way. So
I
I
I
should
could
probably,
still I could still see it being him. So this
yeah,
is me as an outsider who has one share of Chafin and none of any other Arizona reliever. So
right,
I don't have much in on this. I think it could still be McGough.
yeah, could be,
Yeah,
could be,
McGough, but I'll take the under on 18 saves for
yeah.
any Arizona reliever.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
probably the right call.
yeah.
The other outright blown save, at least normal blown save, was Emmanuel Clase. Didn't have his best stuff, had his Class B stuff, as Chris Liss would like to say. Um, I'm not super worried, but velocity down a little bit.
Do you want to grab a James Karinchak anywhere just in case,
I
maybe
think
this Sunday?
he's hard to grab, but yeah,
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 there's some leagues where he's out there still.
but yeah, I think in principle, I mean, Cleveland appears to be a good team. They'll probably have a lot of other situations. The only problem is their formula usually is Karinchak in the eighth and Clase in the ninth. So they
Mhm.
both. It's not like he's going to step in when Clase is tired all that time, because he might be tired too.
Yeah, for sure. Class A, it'd be more if there was something wrong with Class A and he
For
ends up
sure.
on the IL. For what it's worth, Class A's first two appearances of the season, he did not allow a base runner, pitched two clean
So
innings, three strikeouts
so
over
I'm
the
not
two
really
innings.
worried at all.
Me neither. And what's nice if you have Class A, which I do on one team,
Hmm.
um, he got a win. So whenever
Yeah,
your closer, if you have a good closer like Class A and he has a rare stinker, it's always nice when he at least gets the win out of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
One last blown save, and this was totally unlucky. Was Alex Lang on Detroit. Uh, he induced a hard hit ground ball by Jordan Alvarez to Spencer Torkelson, the runner on first. Torkelson stepped on first and then pivoted and threw to second and smacked the runner right in the back.
Yeah.
And that could have ended the game right there if he just steps in a little bit, gets a proper throw. Instead, game continues, runner on second. Jose Abreu one arms this ball to the track. The outfielder, which was Austin Meadows, did not time his jump very well. It didn't necessarily need to jump. It was a catchable, but not easily caught ball, but still catchable. Instead, it turns into a hit and a blown save. So I think the fleeting save opportunities that the Tigers will still go to Lang. I don't think he should lose out because of this.
Good day to put in a trade offer. Then you're saying for those in trading leagues listening, maybe good day to put in a trade offer for Alex Lang. Put
Yep.
in a buy low. His first outing, he gave up one hit, no
Hmm.
walks. Hasn't struck any batters out that he's faced so far.
Right.
But which usually he has a decent strikeout rate. So, but anyways, like you said, one bad outing. He's not going to be Ryan Helsley, Emmanuel Clase. But yeah,
Right.
if his owner is panicking, maybe you could pick him up really cheap right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other closers you want to talk about before we sign off?
Let's see here. So, I do have with the A's. It wasn't a save, but Trevor May and Domingo Acevedo both gave up runs last night.
Hmm.
We know May had a terrible spring training.
Hmm.
I don't know. Danny Jimenez is someone I actually drafted him at the very end of my not counting the draft last night, like my last draft before opening day. I actually
Right.
drafted him right at the end. I don't think he's awesome. At the same time, like he did open last season as the A's closer, so they were fine with him. Like these rebuilding, not caring about winning A's, were fine with him as their closer. He did get their first save. Maybe it's probably still a bullpen by committee, but
Yeah.
just
Sure. And
by
I picked him up in a couple of leagues.
yeah, just by virtue of him not pitching last night, he kind of gained some ground because May and Acevedo both were scored on. Like in a perfect world, the A's get a save chance today or tomorrow, and he gets it since he's fresh and converts it. And yeah, we'll see. Like if he didn't get hurt last year, he was like I said, he was their closer at the beginning of the year. No one gave him a lot of credit, but he was their closer. And if he didn't get hurt, he might have been their closer for a long time last year.
Yeah. The only red
Yeah,
flag is Jimenez had a little velocity decline this spring,
yeah.
but yeah, he
He's
got
not. Yeah, he's not awesome by any
no.
stretch. Walk
And
rate's not great. Yeah.
And the A's are really bad. That's the
Yes,
other
there's
problem.
that too. There's
But
that too. But in a 15 team league, everybody who might be a closer his own kind of way, and I find him interesting.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And
Yeah.
I don't think May had much, and neither had Acevedo. In fact, Acevedo was so bad they made him stick around for a second inning to think about what he did. So I don't think he's really that much of a part of the mix as well.
Yeah.
Watch for more news on your guy Raisel Iglesias. You mentioned something about him not throwing yet.
Yeah, still not throwing. They said initially that he might just miss the minimum. Like that's clearly not going to happen.
I agree.
So I kind of, well, I had already drafted him in some leagues. The leagues other than last night's draft, the other leagues I had already, like, I didn't draft him again after he was hurt, but because I already had a lot of shares. Like I said, I'm hoping for 5 months. I'm hoping he starts throwing maybe again in a week. He's back some point by the end of April. 5 months, I do think he'll be the Braves full-time closer when he comes back. Like, I think that's his role. Same as Liam Hendricks, who we could talk about too, in a totally different situation where he was picked up in a lot of FAAB leagues on Sunday because now they're saying maybe late May for him. I think when he comes back, maybe not his first appearance, but when he comes back, I think he's the White Sox closer, full stop. He's the closer.
Agreed. 100%.
All the time. And I think Iglesias is the same way. And 5 months Iglesias or 4 months of Liam Hendricks will probably get you more saves than anyone on Oakland or Arizona. And we could keep going this year.
And probably about 15 others. Yep.
Right. And you get the roster spot to use on other pitchers who can ruin my ratios.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Total victory. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up today's podcast. We got James Anderson tomorrow. Got on Thursday, Eric Samuelski of RotoBaller is going to join me. On Sunday night, Scott Genstad's going to be traveling. So I got Vlad Sedler joining us to do the FAAB podcast. So that should be fun too. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks Fred for joining today. And you guys, good luck today. Have a great day.